Now, okay.
Yeah. Woo-wee. It has been a wild and woolly couple of
No,
days.
it's a really crazy time. Like it's existential.
It is existential.
Like it's just
Okay.
crazy.
Can you see us? I see us.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
live. We're live for sure. It's
Okay.
working.
So I can't hear though. So I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Well, you can hear me through Zoom. Can you hear me through the Zoom
Oh.
meeting?
Let me see if I can hear you on Facebook.
Right. Okay. We are triaging
Yes.
communications today, April 6th. Welcome, everybody. I know that this is one of the sessions that
Yes,
everybody
you're
is
good.
waiting for.
We have sound on Facebook too.
Good.
I know this troubleshooting lives is always kind of a little nerve-wracking.
It has been. Hold on a second. I want to make sure I record it for everybody as well.
Excellent.
Okay, recording has started. Great. So, welcome aboard. We are into week 3. We totally threw everything out the window. We were originally thinking we were going to do this every 2 weeks, but things have been moving so rapidly and people have been asking for things. So, we figured, okay, let's move things up a little bit. But we do have time that if you want to go into the comments section, I'm going to be watching you here. So if you have comments about cash flow, or if you want to email me or Myrna and say, hey, could you go through my workbook? I'm checking out my numbers. I'm trying to understand this because remember, the number one thing driving this is the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to drive what destinations are closed, what suppliers can't operate, where people can travel. That's number one. Number two is your bank account. How you make money, and everybody on this call, how you make money is different from the other person. So that's why we tried to give you a flexible platform like the Excel workbook, because now you can throw your numbers in there based on what your travel bookings look like, and you can start to adjust it as the pandemic adjusts. Today, as we talk about the communications, this too relies completely on the workbook and the pandemic. Those are the, interdependencies that are, sacrosanct throughout this whole process. So please, you know, as you think about how to make decisions, it really does. It starts with the event, the issue,
Mm-hmm.
how it impacts your business, and then anything else comes off of that. So let's go. So if that's your cash flow statement, hopefully you've had a chance to work on it. Like I said, if you want to email a copy of it over, if you just want to discuss it on a Zoom meeting, please feel free to do so. So today's agenda is implications from the current narrative arc. The narrative arc drives everything else. Then we'll start going into, well, how does that impact my communications plan? And what should I be saying and when? And then finally, we're going to give you very little homework, but it's a couple of worksheets so that you can start to scratch out what you think you're going to say. And again, everybody's message will be different. If you are predominantly an ocean cruise travel agency, your message is different. Because if you're not going to adapt or adjust and shift over to maybe domestic drive vacations or all inclusives in Key West or whatever, your messages are different because you may have nothing to say until the cruise industry kicks back in. So it's really we built broad platforms for you to think about the strategies, and then you've got to go off and do the work yourself. Okay, so the universal narrative arc for all of us, no matter where we live, no matter who our ideal client is, what our preferred suppliers are, that narrative arc remains what you saw last week. Now, it could be local, it could be regional, and it could be global. And in fact, as all of those different entities change, it's going to impact the regional and the local. So for example, if I live in the Northeast and I want to take a late spring vacation, let's say for some reason things go fantastically and we're starting to reduce travel restrictions. Well, if Florida is still on that cycle and doesn't want New Yorkers in, doesn't matter that my local situation has changed. So that's why I'm trying to illustrate here. You could have a place that comes and peaks before the rest of the nation, before the rest of Western Europe. We've had word out of Hong Kong that they may be seeing a second bump as expatriates come home to Hong Kong. They don't want to be in the place that they were going to school or their company had them stationed. Well, if something changes there, that could impact you because that may be a geography that you sell. So thinking about those different narrative arcs, that's how you're going to have to pay attention. And one of the greatest resources I've been going to is Johns Hopkins. They've got their global map, and it gives you an idea. If you go to the bottom right corner, you can see what the daily new cases are. And it gives you a sense, like a weather forecast of what that place looks like. So start to use those tools. But here is one good piece of news. If anybody can feel good about something, it's the fact that the stock market, people who buy stocks, who are doing a lot of analysis, are thinking that perhaps globally, the peak pandemic is nearing. So, looking at China and how it's had a couple of bumps, but it's stabilizing. South Korea stabilized. Japan, Singapore is stabilized. I think we heard out of Italy less than 600 people. Can you believe it? We're saying less than 600 people like it's a good thing. Less than 600 people died yesterday, and that's down from 1,000. I mean, they were skyrocketing. Spain is starting to, the incline is starting to get more gradual. But then there are other places where things are going crazy. I know Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, is now in the hospital. So, we're all moving at a different pace. But some of the smart money is saying they think there's an indication, and they're doing deep analysis, that at least the lodging industry might be a good time to start buying because demand will soon be coming back. So keep an eye on that arc. But your narrative arc, like I said earlier, is different. Again, it starts with the status of the pandemic, but it is highly dependent on your clients. What's been the financial impact to your clients? We have something in America that we believe in called the wealth effect. It's how people feel about their financial security and their ability to spend discretionary dollars based on how big their 401k is, what their retirement looks like, whether or not their house value is still high. So the financial impact on your clients is going to potentially drive this narrative arc, because just because the pandemic has maybe topped out doesn't necessarily mean that the money to spend for vacations has started to come back. That'll depend on the economy, a lot of things you and I can't govern. The destinations, as we said a little bit earlier, the travel style. If somebody is an adventurous traveler and South America had very low impact and they come back quicker, and someone wants to finally go do Machu Picchu, you know what? That may be different for your business than someone who's a big ocean cruiser. And then finally, we're going to talk about this a little bit, is the emotional state of your client. And this is going to impact this. These factors are also going to impact how you communicate. So additional things that impact you are travel restrictions, like I said earlier. And then finally, the pandemic status is always going to be shifting throughout this narrative arc. So we need to pay attention to that until, who knows, maybe 12, 18 months before we're starting to see a true sense of safety and security, because, other storylines have taken over the headlines. Okay, so are you listening to what your clients are saying? And you can listen in a bunch of different ways. You can do some posting on your social media and see how your clients respond. Because if your followers and people who like your business page or like you personally, if they engage with you, they're going to be giving you data points about their emotional state. Me, I've been looking at a couple of different pieces of research. Number one is the Kaiser Family Foundation. They've been on top of this on a longitudinal survey basis. So they're like every week, they're going out to a sample of consumers and they're asking them the same questions. And they're trying to give us some kind of trend line. I saw this other piece of research, MDRG. It was an interesting piece of research, so I included it here. Number one from Kaiser, 74% of people are worried that the worst is yet to come. This is a national US sample. So people are looking at what's going on here in my native New York, which is one of the epicenters. And that's concerning to them. They're seeing news images of the hospitals here and the Comfort Ship and Javits Center being used as a temporary hospital. They're hearing about what's happening in Detroit and Louisiana. And so you've got some trepidation going on. You need to keep that top of mind as you prepare communications. Because if someone's feeling fearful, how you communicate, if you're tone deaf to their fear, that could be a problem for you and your brand.
Yeah, and that's so important, Richard, because I know I've sent you some examples of things I've gotten and they're just not good.
I mean, Travel and Leisure has been doing a bunch of sponsored ads on Facebook, and it's like oblivious to the fact that we're dealing with a pandemic. I
Yeah.
saw an ad from Hilton talking about blissful vacations in Hawaii. Hawaii doesn't want us right now.
No, no, no.
I don't
So
get that. It's like, why are you wasting your money? Do something
I've got to
different.
think that they just forgot to turn it off, but who knows?
I think there's some autopilot marketing that just got stale.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's not be all doom and gloom, because this MDRG, which looked more at other types of behaviors, 61% of people said, I'm confident about my future at least half the time. And about 62% of the people said, I'm happy. So maybe, those 7 o'clock at night, banging of the pots for the healthcare employees and the essential employees, maybe all of this stuff is doing some good in getting people's spirits up. This is important because the emotional state of your clients is how, when you communicate to them, what do they hear? So a little bit more, this is from MDRG only. So they're talking about upcoming travel plans. This research came out at the beginning of last week. So put the actual questions back in March, which was a pretty crazy time. So this data may be lagging on actual perception. I was not able to get a hold of the researcher to see if they had any updates before this call. So this is a little bit dated, I think. But as you can tell, nothing should surprise any of us here. 31% of people who have some kind of plan to travel, 31% say, I haven't taken that completely off the books yet. And there's a lot of logical reasons for that. It may be a practical reason. Their final deposit isn't due. Travel advisors have been saying to them, wait till the supplier cancels so you can get your full refund. There's probably reasons behind that. But look at how, almost half have already postponed the trip. So they're absorbing all these emotions and the news, and they're saying, okay, I'm kicking it out. And thankfully, that number is double canceling the trip. So this is the state of mind of the general consumer. Your consumer, your ideal client, may be different. And only you know that. So that's why listening to your clients in a more personal way on behalf of your agency through your personal agency page, and maybe going a little bit deeper on your own, might not be such a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is time to get personal and don't rely on just social media or automation. Like, actually pick up the phone and call your clients and see how they're feeling. They really appreciate it when you do that.
Yeah. And you know what? Right now, if they've got young kids in the house and they're pulling their hair out of their head, trying to remotely educate them, they may welcome your call with gratitude. So the thing to remember is that everything changes. That what people feel today is going to change based on a host of things. And I'm going to give you some examples. This is only from the Kaiser Family Foundation. So hold on a second. 32% of people at the beginning of March said that worry or stress was having an impact on their mental health. By the end of March, when this same study was done, that rose to 45%. So, it's a decent 33% increase. People choosing not to travel or canceling the travel plans. From the beginning of March, it was about 42%. That went up by 50%, approximately 50%. A little bit more aggressive because travel obviously was either restricted or people just weren't going to take those chances. This is going to shift, and I will try to keep this research updated and pushing it out there so you can kind of see what the sentiment is. There are other places that have done some research. MMGY has not released consumer research that I've seen. They've done research of the industry, so I'm a little bit surprised that they've not been a better resource for that. But there have been a couple of other organizations that are trying to measure what the consumer is thinking and feeling specifically about their travel behavior. But let's say that a bunch of suppliers, let's say CLIA and the cruise lines, really figure out some great ways to increase the safety and security of cruise passengers. It's a technology that they include. There are doctors that come in and consult on how they can do this. They get this aggressively passed through the CDC and the FDA, and the White House announces it on a press briefing that, hey, we've been working with the cruise line industry to try to get it back on. If there's an overt campaign that's done intelligently and maturely, the cruise passengers' intent to travel could grow. But we don't know right now because we don't know what people are thinking in the different industries to change consumer confidence. The pandemic results, certainly that if we lull people into complacency and all of a sudden we see a bump because the herd immunity wasn't as strong as we thought it was, and we see more people heading back to the hospitals, that obviously would then cause consumer sentiment to change. Pricing promotions. There are people out there who, you give me the right price, I'm not that concerned about this COVID thing. And frankly, the ship may be half empty. I'm going. So price promotions can change certain portions, certain shares of your market to be more inclined to travel. And then finally, so much of this is going to rely on employment figures. If somebody is lucky enough to not be laid off during this period and they find other ways to save, and they remain financially solvent for the most part, they may be some of the first people back in the travel market. But if you hear from some of your clients that one or more of a household has been laid off, you can kind of understand where their head may be at. It doesn't mean they won't travel. It depends on their financial reserves. It depends on what else they're at in the stage of their lives. But you should be aware of these things because they're all going to impact these sentiments over time. And it's a lot of variables. And all the economists that I've heard speak over the last 3 weeks have said the same thing. This is different. This is exponentially different. And it is really difficult right now. But there are certain things you can pay attention to and certainly incorporate into your communications to see what that feedback is and be aware of it.
Yeah, and I think, Richard, what you always say when you talk about this is the customers are not like a monolith, right? So there's different people at different stages, and it's really important. Even when you read these surveys, these may not agree with your specific clients. Like, I have a lot of clients that are already retired and have plenty of money. The market going down, that's an issue for them. But most of them are financially secure enough that once everything is safe, they're probably going to keep traveling. But
Right.
if you have families where there's like a primary breadwinner, it's a totally different story if one person loses their job or
Right.
is laid off. So it's really important to look at all these surveys, but also think about who your clients really are and actually talk to them and find out what's happening in their lives. One of the things I found during this whole thing is that it's actually deepened my relationships with some of my clients because we've had these conversations. Like, one of my clients just sent me a really amazing bottle of wine because,
Oh,
I got him home when he was stuck in Bangkok with that cruise that canceled in the middle, and it was so nice. And he like just wanted to do something nice for me, and I hear a lot of stories like this from other travel advisors. So you know that
what it
it's
yeah, what it tells you is directionally what's the size of the pool.
mm-hmm,
And that's all it tells you. It just tells you that the overwhelming majority of people are doing this. But like
right.
Myrna said, there are slices in that pool that cover different household incomes, different emotional states. I mean, some people are more resilient and don't absorb the stress as bad. They know how to dissipate it. There are so many variables, but what it tells you is when we see that 69% drop to 61%, drop to 54%, that gives you a sense of, okay, the pool's getting bigger.
Yeah.
More people are entering into the pool. And that's what these numbers indicate. So there are implications from all of this, both on your core principles that you should be using in your communications. And what I'll show you on the other side of the slide in a second is what the core messages are. These are core messages at a very high level, because once again, every single advisor listening to this is different. Your client base looks a little bit different. Your suppliers look a little bit different, but the principles are all the same. They should be the same for you. So hopefully that will be good direction for you. Number one is acknowledging. You want to listen to what your clients are saying, and you want to acknowledge both their reality and their possible feelings. And I say possible feelings because people express things sometimes and they don't really know what they feel, or you interpret it a certain way. But you want to be sensitive as you're contacting people, especially if you're picking up the phone, and really putting on your listening skills. Because someone who says, oh no, I don't want to travel right now, and you go, okay, it must be coronavirus, and they'll, no, it's actually, my child is going to senior year of college, and I've just got to make sure I've got that tuition paid by August. So really want to use your active listening skills, and you want to be sensing what their emotions are about travel, about the pandemic, about their financial situation, but you need to acknowledge it. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples coming up where people do that. They're very open about acknowledging reality. Number two, you want to consider, what other things are impacting this communication. And you want to know things like, what are your clients' travel aspirations? If you are heavily invested in, beach vacations, most of your travelers like to relax. Well, you know what? That actually might be a good thing for you, because the stress and the worry and being cooped up may play well into that. Your business plan, that cash flow statement. If you are not incorporating which suppliers you're trying to include in this messaging, and we'll show you a little bit later what some different people have done, you're missing out on the opportunity in tying it into your business plan. And then, the likely new reality has got to be incorporated in it, because we don't know. I would really caution anybody saying something like, we're going back to normal. Oh, as soon as we can travel again, it'll be the same as it was for cruise lines. We have no idea. So we want to be paying attention to what's being said about different industries. Tour operators. Will we have changes in buffet services at all inclusives? And can they do that profitably if it's no longer masses of people lining up with food that's brought out from the kitchen? Now they've got to hire more servers. We don't know what this new reality is going to be. So you want to be paying attention to supplier news and other elements. And then finally, do take action. And as you can see, phone is purposely the number one bullet. If you go into your CRM and you identify who your top clients have been the last year and a half, 2 years, those are your top clients. They have booked with you at least once a year, or they've booked with you at least twice in the last 3 years. Something that gives you a sense of these are pretty loyal clients. They come back to me. They come back to me for the same thing. Those should probably be your phone calls, at least. Give them a call, and you can think about the script, but they should be getting a phone call. The masses can get an email. And then both for your masses and prospects, that's where your website and your social comes in. And there you can have different type of messaging. So you can take action pretty easily over the next couple of weeks if all of your rebooking and everything is calmed down. So what are some of the core messaging that we've been seeing that have been used effectively? Calm and considerate. You want to be considerate of that person's feelings and the reality of the situation. A doctor friend of mine just posted today that his daughter, who's a doctor, I didn't know this. He hadn't posted it up until today. She had been COVID positive. I guess she passed her 2 to 3 weeks of quarantine, and she's back at the hospital. David's nerves, as much as he's proud of his daughter, I'd imagine his nerves are a little bit frayed. His little girl is back on the front lines. So you want to, have messages like, I'm just checking in on you. I want to see how you're doing. I know this may not be easy on you, what you're going through. And I would hope that you are hoping that they're feeling well and conveying that message of, hey, I'm not just checking in with you professionally, but you're a good client of mine. And I'm wondering, is everything okay? You want to stay factual. And Myrna, you want to jump in, just speak up.
Yeah, factual is key. I think that if you haven't sent out this email yet, you should write one and send it out. I sent a similar one about, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago, but basically you want to let your clients know what you're doing as a travel advisor during this time, what your suppliers are doing during this time, and then what the plans are and or what the implications are for travel. So, when I've done communications just for myself and for other agencies and travel companies I work with, the first email is all about, here's what I'm doing, here's what the industry's doing. If you have travel coming up, here's how we can help you, kind of messages. Um, and then and then hopeful, of course. I love that you put that in there. Yeah, always try to end on a somewhat positive note. We don't know how long this is going to last, but
No.
you want to reassure your clients that you're going to be there for them whenever it is. So I like messages like, when you're ready to talk about travel again, I'll be here. That kind of thing. It's low pressure. It's literally like, if you want to talk travel. And, I sent out these emails and I've had clients reach out to me and say, I'm thinking about, Scotland in 2021. Can we start working on that? And yeah, of course we can. And, I have to think that by 2021 we'll be past this, right? But I'm not I'm not closing the door to them contacting me. I'm not telling them, because if you don't say anything, they're going to assume the worst. So
And in
definitely
fact,
out.
you're
And you don't want
opening the
them,
door.
yeah, you don't want them to think that you're closed. That's like the
Yeah.
worst thing. You want them to think that, hey, I'm helping all my people that have travel in the summer figure out what the best decision is. And then once that's over, if people want to talk about future travel, I'm here.
Right. Yep.
And that's kind of what you want to say.
Absolutely. Just writing a
And then in
couple of
terms of
notes.
suppliers, I've gotten a mix of things from suppliers. Some of them have been really good, like inspirational kind of messaging that's very appropriate to pass on to a client. So, for example, Lindblad has a great offer right now in the market for people that book during April, where they get like these extra benefits, and it's a very flexible cancellation. And because they're trying to see if they can fill up some of their later 2020 voyages, like we're talking like October, November timeframe. So if you have a client that the Galapagos has been on their bucket list forever, and you're talking to them on the phone, and you can tell that they're not really super scared, and you can tell that they haven't lost their job, and you feel like it's appropriate to mention that, I would mention that. What I wouldn't do is send a blanket email to my whole list. Hey, everyone, Lindblad has this great promotion. Like, I don't think that that's going to get you the right response. Like, you need to be very targeted in who you offer those deals to as they start, because I think we're going to start seeing more and more of those
Oh,
as
you
this
are.
goes on. But as of now, I've been very, very cautious about sending those out en masse. I don't even post them on social. I'm really just like, in a one-on-one conversation or a one-on-one email, I might mention it.
And that's being authentic because you
Mhm.
know somebody has a certain style of travel. You know that a specific supplier is offering a great deal. And you're not saying, I'm here to, sell you on this, but I know that you're interested. I know that it exists, and I'm just putting you together with that
Yeah.
knowledge. That's all I'm doing. Promise, that's a seasonal allergy cough.
I know, seriously.
So let's talk about your communications plan. The storytelling tools start in two places. Your website is where you can store things over time, where if somebody has done business with you and they've bookmarked your page, they're more likely to go there first than to pick up the phone and call you. They're stuck at home, they're on their laptop, they're on their phone, something caught their eye, they're whatever. So your website needs to be updated. And if you have messages that you can have on your homepage, a red bar or something that says coronavirus updates, and then it jumps over to a landing page, and that landing page says something like, thanks for checking in. I'm, busily working to reschedule any clients who are booked in the month of April. I'm open to new bookings and keeping updates on both travel restrictions and what suppliers are doing. So grateful that you're checking in with me. Click here if you haven't subscribed to my coronavirus update or whatever you want to do to be out there and be visible. Your website is a good place to do that, but your phone is the next tool. It really is. And again, you can look at your database and break out who you need to call. And if it's just a casual hi, I was just wondering about you, wondering how you're doing. If you know something, oh my goodness, that's right. Out of that couple, the husband's a doctor. Okay, that's part of your call is, hey, I know your husband's on the front lines, or your daughter is a doctor, or whatever. If you know these kinds of things, it's kind of an entree to say, I am checking in and I am curious if everything's okay. From there, it's email. And guys, as much as I love social, it's really sort of on the periphery here. It's a great way for you to do some fun stuff, some stuff that may keep your visibility, but it's not as personal. It's not as customized. It may be, upbeat. It may be factual, but it's not as important as making sure your home space, your website, and the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody, that's where everything emanates from. Okay, so I thought this was great. This came from my dog groomer. My dog groomer, Sharon, is the loveliest person. I really, really adore her. And look at the elements of what I just talked about. She acknowledges reality. I hope everyone is healthy and safe. She's acknowledging health and safety are currently in jeopardy. So she's acknowledging that. Then she gets into, so what am I doing as your dog groomer? I'm still open, but I've got a new way to work with me, and I hope you're aware of it. And please, for the safety and security, here are my rules. And then at the end, what does she end with? Hope, be safe, stay healthy, kind, and check in on one another. Beautiful sentiments. She wraps it all up in I'm checking in, and I don't know if she sent an email. I'm not on her email list. But if she did this via email as well, and depending upon the subject heading, you know what? That's a really beautiful communication. Number 2, this is a country club in the New Hampshire. I think it's the Lake Country is where it is. And I know one of the partners there. That's why I got this. So here you go. They're acknowledging reality. These are strange times. They're not making it doom and gloom. They're not saying death and despair, but they're acknowledging these are strange times. But look at what we're doing. Well, we started working on the grounds and we're hoping to be open by then. But you know what? It's all up to the governor of New Hampshire. We're dependent upon the permissions of the state on what we do. This is what I'm doing. And then they end with hope. Thank you for your support and be well. Really nice and tight. It's a different way of doing it. That they've got 2 glasses clinking and the green, or actually that looks like a wedge. So they're out on the fairway maybe. A really pleasant way of staying visible, giving an update and saying, we're here for you. We're thinking about you. Wonderful.
Yeah, those were great.
Now here's my rock star, Barbara Kahn. Barbara is a travel advisor, and she knocked it out of the park. So she took a New York Times article where travelers were stranded abroad, and she turned it into here's what I've been doing. Here's what I've been doing as a travel advisor. I've been helping stranded travelers. And she gives a little bit of an example of a particular passenger without keeping them anonymized. She tells a story, and look at the response. 35 comments, people praising Barbara, Barbara chiming back in and offering some expertise, more people praising Barbara. It was just, I'll tell you, I was watching this unfold the other day when she posted it, and I'm going, Barbara Kahn nailed it. You can stay visible in a way that's professional. It demonstrates your expertise. It gets a conversation going. Barbara told me she actually has an upcoming booking based on this. Somebody saw all of this and said, yeah, I do want to take a vacation. I'm giving Barbara a call. There's a really tactful way to do this right now as we're on the upslope of, reaching that peak of the pandemic. So, like I said, on the upslope of the peak of the pandemic, emails can be kind of broken out in a certain way. And I'm just trying to move Myrna and I around so that we're not blocking everything.
Mm-hmm.
So again, acknowledge reality. Demonstrate your care and your consideration. Here's what I'm doing now, hopeful for the future. You know what? There's nothing wrong with you including a click here for a consultation call. That is not an aggressive sales pitch. It's you're leading them up to it. I'm your trusted travel advisor. Here's what I'm doing. I know you've booked with me before. And in fact, if you want to talk, click here, set up an appointment. Totally acceptable. And here are some of the subject headings that you might want to put in there. Just checking in, hoping you're well, advice during these crazy times. There's different ways. Or you may have stay-at-home stories and tips. I've had some people who are talking about how to keep your kids, busy during these times. They're going a little bit outside of the travel zone, and they're saying, "I'm going to get on board with all of these people who are, offering things." You might want to send out a recipe list. So, the subject heading may be, great Italian meals I've cooked, while traveling through Tuscany. People are looking for recipes. They're cooking the same thing. Subject headings that are slightly tied to what you do or emotionally tied to what you do that get them to open, and then at least they can start to remember what you do, how you do it, what you stand for, what your belief systems are. And in that email, you may want to say something like, what I've been working on. You may, the subject heading may be, dreaming of the Caribbean for Christmas. Hey, I'm monitoring the situation. I'm monitoring what resorts are doing. I'm monitoring, what the current, COVID situation is. And you're just demonstrating that you're paying attention. You're an expert. You're knowledgeable. And that's a nice soft pitch, and it gets people thinking. As we go up to the top of the slope, things are going to start to change because, like I said in last week's episode, the media is going to change. The conversation is going to become more positive. My Italian is awful. I haven't been reading what the Italian press looks like, but I'm guessing that the consistent plateau that they've been seeing, that there's more positive media coverage coming out, and you can reflect that over time with your communications plan. You can plan for what's my top of this, episode. What does that look like and feel like? How does it change? Because now you're going to see that pool of people. Remember, we saw that 60 some odd percent who are saying, I've canceled all plans. That's going to start to shrink. And more people are going to be open to an email that's a little bit more positive. You can still say things like, I'm hoping you're well, because maybe you haven't talked to them in 2-3 weeks. They didn't respond to the first email. They didn't set up a consultation call. So something like, I'm still hoping you're well, and advice during these crazy times is good. But you might start bringing in new language like, is it time to dream again? And maybe there are some great suppliers who are announcing some things because Barbados has announced that they had no, coronavirus incidents. They've put in some plans with US TSA so that Americans leaving and arriving in Barbados will have done some kind of testing or something. So they've agreed somehow with the US government, the CDC, to give them more certainty that this virus is not coming from the United States. Who knows? You've maybe got some news about things that are changing. You could also talk about how you're dreaming of traveling again. Maybe you put in a travel log from a trip you took that you want to take again, and that's your subject heading. But you can start to shift towards more realistic expectations that travel will be loosening up soon. And then finally, on that downslope, there's going to be promotions coming on. Suppliers will be offering more about their safety policies and maybe security procedures that they're going to put in place for health concerns. Travel restrictions may start lifting as we're on that downslope. And, Italy is now comfortable that they've got their own situation in order. They have stocked up supplies in case they get a little bump off of the trough. They've got an agreement with the United States government about what Americans need to do before they can actually, book the airline ticket or whatever. Again, you've got news that's going to be coming out from the travel trades, from the State Department, and your emails can reflect this news because you are the expert. You're the trusted advisor who's not going to sell them into a situation that'll make them uncomfortable, but you can inform them about things that they may not be reading on their own. So with that, like I said, please try to set up your cash flow statement with your expenses. Hopefully most of you have applied for either the grants or the loans by now that ASTA fought for. But the nice thing about creating this is that if today this is both your cash flow plan near term and you're thinking about your communications given this situation, that if it doesn't go that way and we are still in the upslope 30 days in, your communications plan just gets enforced or implemented 30 days later. And as we move further along, if you know what your messaging is through your core principles and your core messages, it's just a matter of staying visible, repeating the behavior. And if by July we're at the peak, or we're on the downslope by July, God willing, now you're enacting the second part of your plan. And that's why we want you to not focus necessarily on dates, but focus on that narrative arc, because that narrative arc can move. If you say to yourself, I'm going to be sending these emails out, in June, okay, it's based on the current knowledge, but you don't have to hit the button until you know that things didn't shift.
Yeah. And in terms of communicating, definitely, I would do at least twice a month an email to your list to just kind of update them on the current, follow those templates that Richard laid out for you. They're great. If you're in between where you already sent like that first email and we're not quite at the peak yet, think about other content you can send out that's appropriate. This is where like the people are bored. Like we have one student who's doing an amazing job. She's sending out a newsletter with like virtual tours or recipes or all kinds of little tips, movie recommendations inspired by travel, book recommendations inspired by travel. Think about fun things you can send your clients that will keep them engaged with you. Not necessarily any kind of sales pitch, just to keep them remembering that you're there and remembering that you know about this stuff. So if they do decide that, they get a wild hair and they're like, maybe I want to plan something for October, you're going to be top of mind. And then they're going to call you or email you, and you're going to be able to advise them at that time, whether that's appropriate or not. Who knows? Hopefully, yes. And that's really, it's really important. On social media, what I've been doing personally is I have not stopped posting. I see that a lot of pages have stopped posting, and I just want to encourage you not to stop posting. It's okay to post travel pictures and everything. You just have to change the words. Like you can't post, oh, let's all go to Italy next month, right? You can't post that, but you can post, here's a picture, a great memory that came up on Facebook from my trip to Paris 4 years ago. And wow, that was so great. Things like that. You can do nostalgia, you can do future inspiration. But just, you'll have to look at your messaging and make sure that it's not promotional. I would personally stay away from supplier content right now because it's just not appropriate.
Nope.
Now, a lot of suppliers are picking up on this and they're sending me these great emails with videos and recipes and stuff like that. I would share, as long as there's not like a promotion attached to it, it's fair game. So
Myrna, do they give you the ability to customize it, to put your own?
No, they're just sending it's links. So like I think Viking is doing this whole like thing. So there's some links to like some cooking classes or some videos, and then you can link to them in a post with your own little caption. A lot of the suppliers are coming up with stuff like this right now because they're trying to find a way to stay relevant.
They're trying to stay relevant and visible
of people. So definitely take a look at those portals that they provide us as agents and see what kind of stuff they're putting out, because it's perfectly fine to post like, something about future travel or something about dreaming of travel. As long as you don't come across as like, call me, book now, because nobody's going to call you book now at this moment. And you don't want to come across as, tone deaf. But I did get one promotion from a supplier that I sent to Richard. I was like, this is like way too soon for this. It was like a save money. They were trying to get bookings for like June, and
Right.
it's like, I'm just not sure. I mean, I have some bookings for June and I'm not sure they're going to happen. Like the last thing I want to do is book more people for June. I
And
feel
make
like,
and make more madness for yourself.
I know personally, I'm looking at like, I'm not booking anything probably till like October this year. um, and not that anybody's really asking for October. The only requests I have gotten that are new requests are for 2021. And of course, I'm working on those.
Oh.
So, and I have other colleagues that are saying the same thing. I don't know if any of the agents are on here have
The other
experiences that they can share.
the other thing I would tell everybody to do is if you're using somebody like Branch Up or one of these other services, if you have the time, go back 2 months now and take a look at how those posts are doing. How many clicks, how many likes, how many loves? Did you get any comments? If you got comments, have you replied to people? If your host or your consortium is giving you Branch Up, go look at the data and see what seems to be the most attractive. I follow 40 or 50 advisors for the consulting firm for Myrna and I. And I've been going through some of your news feeds and looking at the Branch Up posts. Some did okay. Most didn't. And it was stuff like, look how beautiful the Maldives are. Okay, they're beautiful, but I'm not going to engage right now with you about the Maldives. It's so far out in the distance. If you have a great, relationship with a villa in the Maldives and you could personalize something, I would say go ahead and do that. But a generic 2-sentence reference to how beautiful the Maldives are, it's not going to be engaging. It's not going to register in your followers' news feed. De-emphasize that. And if you do have a tool that allows you to customize, that to me is where your brand can stand out. Your voice. Barbara Kahn's post worked, not because the New York Times article is so phenomenal, but because she wrote a narrative attached to it that was the core of her brand. I am your trusted travel advisor, and when you book with me, I get you home. I will go across the ocean to bring you home. That's why that resonated so deeply.
Yeah. So all of these stories that we have of all of these people we've helped during this time, write those down. Those are great
Yeah.
stories. Even if you don't use it right now, you'll be able to use this for the future in all of your marketing. All those great client testimonials, those thank you notes they've sent us, all of that can be repurposed into your marketing in the future because it tells the story about what you do. And yes, I agree with Richard. You can't just post a picture of the Maldives and expect people to engage. You have to add some context that's personal, that's emotional, that's about you. Otherwise, it's just going to fall flat.
Yeah.
So, but definitely keep posting. Like, don't just stop. I know a lot of people turned off their automatic posts, which is probably a good thing to do if you can't control what's going out. But that doesn't mean you should stop posting altogether. Definitely post, even if all you post is like your favorite books about travel or your favorite movies about travel. Think about creative ways to just keep your brand out there. The one thing that's good from a marketing perspective is that everyone is on these phones like 24/7 now, right? So everybody's on their couch with their cell phone out, everybody has their cell phone. And so they're looking at that news feed on LinkedIn and on Facebook and everywhere else. And it's so you need to be there, right? So you can't just stop posting content. Like you have to be there in order to capitalize on that attention and try to get some attention. Because you don't want to start from zero when all of this comes back. Like if you stop posting altogether and you stop marketing totally, then you're going to be behind whenever we do come out of this, which we know we will. We just don't know when. So yeah, so my suggestion is to keep posting. If you have a blog, keep blogging. again, you're going to change what you write about to fit the current situation. But a lot of the ideas that Richard went over with the emails can be turned into blog posts, can be turned into posts.
Repurpose like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, everything that I post on my blog becomes an Instagram post, becomes a Facebook post, could become a Facebook Live video, although I don't really do those too much for my travel agency. But I highly encourage you guys to do that, because it's a great way to connect with people during this time, especially since they're all on their phones.
Yep. So you know what? For next week, for next Monday, I'll do a deconstruct on like 2 or 3 examples of how to take a trip you took, and maybe I'll just use some of the trips that I've taken over the last couple of years. But if anybody here wants to, deconstruct some ideas with me, and then you could be featured in next week's call, email us, Richard at
Yeah, that would be great.
travelbusinessmastermind.com, and we can kind of show you what this methodology looks like, kind of step by step, and then how your clients, I see so many testimonials that fall flat because it's superficial.
Mhm.
I love Jane Doe because Jane Doe takes care of me from the beginning of my trip to the end.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
But if you tell me that Jane Doe took my son, who was at the American University in Paris, and when the announcement came that travel was going to be blocked from Europe back to the United States, it wasn't the accurate way it was just depicted, but there was a crisis, and Jane, was on the phone with me and on the phone with American Airlines and got a seat cleared and figure out the routing. And you know what? Any parent can see themselves in that scene. That's what I mean by deconstruct the testimonial, get deeper into it so somebody can get past the surface. Because
Yeah, because you got to tell the story. You can't just say, "Oh, I did a great job," or "I got my client home in the middle of their career." Like, you have to tell the
okay,
story with the drama and everything that happened. That's what makes it engaging. That's why her post was so good, because it
yes,
really told the whole story in just a couple paragraphs. You could kind of put yourself in the shoes of those clients and how she stepped in to help them, and that is the goal. That's what builds engagement, and that's what
yeah,
helps you build your brand.
absolutely. So, what's your homework? Keep plotting your cash flow. The workbook, the blank workbook is free for you to use. It's sitting inside the Travel Business Mastermind Facebook group that you joined. If you scroll through
Go to units,
units,
actually,
yep,
and it's in unit. You'll see unit number 1, unit number 2. Like, we're putting them all in order, so if you missed one, you can easily go back. But the cash flow thing is, I think, unit number 2. You can download that spreadsheet, and you can also get a copy of the slides and watch the video again if you missed it.
and try to give yourself 2 scenarios with that workbook so that you can kind of compare the numbers and see what that means. If you did apply for the loan and you've got that cash now temporarily, it gives you a better idea of, okay, when can I want to pay that thing off as quickly as I can. It'll give you that idea. So build a couple of scenarios at least. The second thing that I developed, very simplistic. I kept this as simple as it could. They're going to be 2 individual sheets. They're your communication planner to get you through this process. You can print it out 3 times if you need to write a lot. It's just meant to start organizing your brain around what would your key messages be, and that's the one on the bottom. So on the far right, on the bottom, you see, what would your check-in message be during lockdown? What would your check-in message be as travel restrictions are lifting? And start to handwrite it out. Think about it. Get yourself a bottle of wine, like I've been doing just about every night. Get yourself a bottle of wine, pour yourself a glass, and think about, does the check-in change for you as we move closer to, the cases are declining? The factual updates. Who are you going to be, providing updates about? Well, Rich, most of my business is to Asia. So either I'm going to change my business plan and move a lot of my bookings down to South America and Europe or whatever. Okay. So then what are the factual updates you'd want to be providing? At some point, the suppliers that are going to be reopening, the restrictions are going to be lifting. Start making notes for yourself. And then the aspirational side of it. What's the hopeful stuff? Maybe these are some of your personal stories, your customers' personal stories. Start taking notes and thinking about the different stages and how you can maybe start acquiring all of that. And I even left a little note there for you, a little line for pictures. Maybe make a note to yourself. where's that picture that I took when I went to Barbados? I got to go
Yeah.
find it.
This is the
And
time to post personal photos as opposed to stock photos. This is the time to really be authentic. And I can't emphasize that enough. Definitely find those old pictures from your trip, even if they're not perfect. I mean, do a little editing if you
tell
can.
the story. Just tell
Tell
the
the
story about that
story,
picture.
be real, be authentic. And, I think that's what people are craving right now, because everybody's craving connection because we can't see anybody in person. So we're trying to see them virtually. But if your picture is like, some perfect thing off a stock photo, it's not going to resonate as well as something where it shows you with the guy drinking wine on a hillside, or it's, you with the zebras, kind of like my background here. It's got to be something that has some emotional pull to it. And so I
Myrna
think,
snuck into Nairobi. That's where she is right now.
yeah,
She's at
yeah,
a lodge.
I wish. I wish that would be a great place to quarantine, actually. Um, but anyway,
The
no, I
top,
think these are great, Richard. I think these will be super helpful.
the top one is what you would actually say. So now you've got your messages in the bottom. So now the top one is, okay, on my website during the lockdown, I don't have a coronavirus update. Okay, so what am I going to do? Okay, I've got 3 suppliers who've been great. I'm going to put them in there, and how they're real time updating, and they can link over. Um, on my Facebook and Instagram feeds, during the lockdown, I'm going to mostly talk about the clients that I saved their vacations, even if they weren't traveling, that I was there for them as the airlines and the cruise lines adapted their refund policies. And I've helped Jane Doe make sure that they've repositioned their investment in that cruise at the appropriate time. And
Mhm.
they're ready, they're happy about that. Okay. And then when it moves into the declining new cases, well, you know what? Now my Instagram feed can be more inspirational. Now I can
Mhm.
I'm going to put in more pictures about the beautiful places that we're all longing to go, because cabin fever has been around a while now. And it's not such a bad thing to be hopeful, because some of the recession and all these other things that have been impacting people are on the decline or plateauing. Now my Instagram feed can change. And start making notes to yourself in these boxes and start developing that plan for when we're going to pull out of this, because we are going to pull out of this. I can guarantee you that. It's really up to you how you're managing your finances and how you're managing your messaging that's going to get you through it.
Mhm.
Those are the 2 things you can control. So with that, if you do want to get a hold of either one of us, by all means, our email addresses, I've been checking my email 3 or 4 times a day at Travel Business Mastermind. Um, please stay in touch.
You can
Um,
also message us on our page or in the group if you're on your phone and you can't
yep,
remember our email. Just go to the messages and message us.
yep.
We monitor the messages for both the group and the business page. And yeah, friend us on Facebook and let's connect. And
And if you
if we
want
can help, we'd love to help.
And if you want to join the Slack group, email me, and we can develop the thread there. And maybe I could start doing some fun things. If we get a large enough group in Slack, I can start putting out some challenges to you guys. Okay, I'm going to challenge you to have a testimonial ready by Friday or something. But I really need your email address to do that, to invite you into Slack, and then start doing some fun real-time stuff. So I've been kind of waiting for people to do that. So please email me. Just subject heading, RSVP for Slack, and I'll throw you in there, and we'll try to have some fun between now and when this thing's over. Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Great, everybody. Have a
Have a
great
good
rest of your
week.
week, and do get in touch if you need us. We're here for you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.